My name is Zoe Peden and I run a number of businesses. The one I'm most known for is one called MyChoicePad. MyChoicePad is assistive technology, so helping people with severe learning difficulties to communicate. It uses sign language videos, symbols with synthesized speech on an iPad to help people make choices and communicate. My dad was an entrepreneur. He had his own building company, and my stepdad was a builder, and basically everyone in my family really was self-employed. We saw the ups and downs of the having money and then having not, depending on the weather. If you work in the building industry, you can have money and then you can not. And the recession as well in the 90s was particularly hard on the family. No one had a degree, no one had a profession other than working in the building industry, so I wasn't exposed to any of that. My upbringing was pretty tough as a kid, single parent family on free school meals. We struggled, we still have fun, but I was selling stuff from quite an early age at school. I sold my free school meal token to people who wanted to eat more. I was making cookies, trying to sell them in shops. I was doing ridiculous stuff that never sold, but anytime I got sweets or chocolate, chop it up. I created a shop on my front lawn, selling to people, undercutting the shop around the corner. It must have been so embarrassing. But you know, the mums would come and let's buy some sweets off the girl on my front lawn, and I just loved organising events and raising money for charity and selling things. Watched a lot of movies growing up, and I saw the movie Wall Street, and I saw that people could come from any background and make money like Charlie Sheen did with his character. And I decided then that I wanted to be an investment banker. I think I was 14. So then I looked up how you did that, because I didn't have a clue. And apparently you had to go to a good university and you needed to study economics. And that's what I did. And I went to London School of Economics. I had the brains and it was the right direction for me. I had to just up my game significantly. It was a lot of pressure. And even as an entrepreneur, I never felt as much pressure as I did at those 3 years of undergraduate degree. They were the most pressure I've ever had in my life. But I came out of it quite bitter and a little bit angry that all these people had I saw them as advantages at the age of 18 that I hadn't been exposed to. And that frustrated me. And they did internships in their summers. And I worked cleaning. I cleaned my whole school. Cleaners get paid well, the council pays them quite well. And I couldn't do skiing and those internships which were unpaid. And the internships that were paid were so competitive when you went for them. I didn't know how to interview or how to focus or to say the right words. And I found it a real struggle. So that was just really annoying. So I left university really frustrated because I tried to get the jobs in the investment banks and I got through the math tests. But when it came to the psychology tests, just couldn't get through at all. I didn't know how to say the right words. So I didn't get into investment banking. So my entire dream was like not happening because I was determined and wanted to stay in London to get to as many interviews as possible. And if you worked in retail, you worked at the weekend and your days off were in the week. So I could go for job interviews. So I just kept applying, going for interviews. And I managed to get one in publishing. And that was my first job in academic publishing, actually, working on economics journals. In that very first job, within the first 3 months, the people that I went to work for acquired another much larger publisher, Routledge, and we moved into their building. So we were the small ones who took over a really big company. But they got rid of my manager, the person that hired me, within 3 months of me joining because of the merger. And I had nothing to do, but I had to look busy. So there were 2 books in her room. One was a JavaScript book and one was a HTML book. And I took them and I started looking at how to build websites on my computer at work. And then when we moved into the new building, they did a scan on everybody's computers. There were no internet or email policies then. It was 1998. And I got a written warning for building website at work on their server. So I was quite annoyed with that and very embarrassed. So I got a loan and I bought my own computer and I started building websites for myself then. And then I managed to get a job in time, being an electronic editor, so I moved to the web publishing side. And then I got a job in a charity because I didn't want to work for a corporate again after all my experiences in the publishing industry. And this charity was a learning disability charity, and it had a language program called Makaton. And Makaton uses sign language and symbols to help people with severe learning disabilities and communication issues to speak. But it was all in book format and on VHS video. And they were doing an amazing job, but it hadn't been digitized. So I worked there for a couple of years, got amazing experience on how to build a business, because it's never called itself a social enterprise, but the Makaton charity essentially is. It's 95% trading, only 5% donation, so it is a social enterprise before there was one. So it's very business focused. So I got amazing skill set by doing that. I started doing an MBA at the same time I was working there. So I was filling in all the gaps in my knowledge and experience, for the first 10 years of working that I hadn't done yet. That was kind of my transition, but I was running out of money. I'd started to apply for part-time jobs. So I was 18 months in, hadn't taken any salary from that point, and I was like, oh, what's going to happen, I'd got to the last two in a deputy CEO job for a charity that was going to rescue my finances, and I didn't get it. And around the same time as that, I'd done a pitch in London. It was my second ever pitch, and I'd been emailed by someone who was in the audience, and he was an investment manager for Unlimited, the Foundation for Social Entrepreneurs. And he wrote to me and he said, I love what you're doing. We've got a competition. We don't have any tech in our competition. I really think there's something in what you're doing. Using technology, you're a for-profit business, but you're having a massive impact. Well, you went to the competition, and he sent me all the guidelines, and I had 48 hours to fill it all in. Filled it in because I was absolutely desperate at that point. And I think a month later, I'd gone through all these different rounds of interviews. I was getting extremely more and more stressed. The less money that you have, the more desperate. Everyone could tell in your eyes. And in September, I got a phone call. The ventures director rang me, and she said, you've been selected, Zoe, you've won the grant. And just tears and just the relief was incredible. So that was the start of the next phase. It was £25,000, and it was a 3-year support program. That 25,000, and then spent on visiting 61 schools, and I saw over 600 teachers, speech and language therapists, and then I got some more investment. And then when I came out of that, 8 months later, I raised my angel round, and then 12 months after that, I was able to raise VC. But that money, in that kind of area, special needs world, does not move that fast, and it wasn't fast enough for VC. So they made me, I sold the assets, I went with the assets, and then a couple of years later, I was in a position to buy everything back. So now MyChoicePad is 100% owned by me. All the team is distributed everywhere. Most of the team is in Slovenia, a very good team, software developers. The team that I built with the journey that I went on was incredible for me to learn, to me as a person, to develop, to have all those people reliant on you raising that money, you getting those sales in, and they've got families, they're having children, they're paying their mortgages. That kind of responsibility makes you think about the world quite differently. As well as that job, I have another business too. I sell online speech and language therapy, and I also work as an investor now in venture capital. So I do a number of things, as well as teaching here at Cass Business School as well. And that is quite beautiful to be able to do all those different things, although I don't think I'd be very good at them all if I did it 10 years ago. So I think it's come at the right time in my life to be able to layer up everything else. And it all actually starts to fit in and slot together. And it's interesting telling this story because at the time, it wasn't smooth. Nothing seemed like you knew what was happening. It happened. And then when you tell the story like this, it sounds like it was all meant to be. But it never was. It's extremely disjointed. And the way I'm telling the story sounds smooth, and it was anything but. And it never is. Passion took me a long way. People bought into me because I was so determined from such a young age in everything that I've ever done. Some might say sometimes reckless. The risks that I took on paper look ridiculous. You nearly lose your home I had a mortgage to pay, and you don't know where that money's going to come from at the time. It's what you want to do. You've got such determination. I think there's still a little bee in my bonnet for socio-economic entrepreneurs to come through, definitely. I want to still see people more from my background, and when I'm out being an investor, I don't really see many working class entrepreneurs. So that is still frustrating, but I understand why I don't. The risks I just explained that you have to take to put everything on the line financially, even when you've built it up and you've got somewhere comfortable. So you might have built something for 10 years, working in a job, you're just getting on top of things, on top of your student loans or whatever. And then you go and be an entrepreneur, and you don't have any money for another 10 years. And now my energies are less being angry and not quite spreading the love, but I guess spreading the investment, working in venture capital, to that money, stopping that money going to the same people all the time, and trying to find those hidden gems. I guess perhaps I was one. I was a little bit of a rough diamond that needed a lot of polishing, and I had a lot of people around me that did all that polishing. It certainly wasn't me doing it, and I'd like to play a part, one of those polishers again, and part of the network that helps to unmine all those wonderful, particularly working class entrepreneurs out there. I see when you are financially comfortable, the level of risks that you can take without it being detrimental to your mental health, but still frustrating knowing that I've got here now. How much creative could I have been if I'd had that financial backdrop at 20? How many more people, could be creative that don't get the opportunity, and what different lives could they lead?